I thought it was quite a poor outing for both David Cameron and Ed Miliband, frankly. Questions hung over them, over both men, all the way through the session and weren't really answered. The big question for David Cameron that Ed Miliband did try to put was why it was, if he felt that it was right to stand by her and nothing had changed in terms of whether or not she had done something wrong, that she then suddenly resigned and he accepted that resignation. But for Ed Miliband, the question that still hangs over him is why really he said nothing about the issue. It took 24 hours last Thursday into Friday for the Labour Party press release even to put anything out on the whole Maria Miller expenses report, and Ed Miliband has been notably silent, only pitching in obviously at the last moment. So it was tentative from Ed Miliband, it was defensive from David Cameron. This was a flavour of how the Prime Minister justified his actions.
I thought it was right. Other people will be able to take their own view. I'm telling you about my view. I thought it was right in those circumstances to allow her to make her apology and continue with her job. If the right honourable gentlemen think that it is leadership to fire someone at the first sign of trouble rather than actually giving someone a chance to get on with the job, that is actually not leadership, that is weakness.
So why then did Maria Miller stand down? Well, the closest that David Cameron got to explaining that was when he said, well, she set out her reasons in her letter of resignation, as though he had no involvement or play in the negotiations that must have taken place, or the decision to accept that resignation. Ed Miliband did have a go at him, obviously.
Why was he the last person in the country to realise her position was untenable? The Culture Secretary went, not because of her bad conduct, but because of her bad press.
But David Cameron was trying to slap back and get back onto the offensive about the way in which Ed Miliband was framing his questions.
I think it shows all the signs of someone seeing a political bandwagon and wanting to jump on it. But he is jumping on this bandwagon after the whole circus has left town.
So what now, Dermot? Well, MPs would rather, probably, or most of them, would forget about all this. David Cameron suggested that actually there is work that parliamentarians are going to have to do, and suggested and implied that he might be ready to lead that.
There is still very deep concern, public concern, that is still very raw about the expenses scandal that rocked this Parliament in the last Parliament. And the biggest lesson I learned, that anger is still very raw and it needs to be acted on.
And what might that mean from David Cameron?
I think it's absolutely right. We should do everything we can to show that this is a good and honest Parliament with good and hard-working people in it.
A good and honest Parliament with good and hard-working people in it. That, as we've seen from the past week, is not how very many members of the public see it, and I think that there would be hollow laughter in broad sections of the populace and the electorate at that particular phraseology from David Cameron. It will be interesting, given that he set himself an uphill task, to see about how he goes about accomplishing it. So not brilliant, frankly, on all sides, and in my judgment, for once, I'm in good company. Patrick Winter from The Guardian saying Cameron poor, but Miliband had a chance to go big and say there's a crisis of trust across politics. He went small. Mark Wallace from Conservative Home, essentially expenses paralyses all sides of the Commons. Tom Bradby, Ed Miliband has been quite reasonably impressive at PMQs so far this year, but faced an open goal today and failed to score. James Forsyth from The Spectator and Mail on Sunday. That wasn't good for Cameron, but could have been a lot worse.